you got to duplicate the right things consistently. Because if you duplicate the wrong thing and it keeps being wrong and you don't know that it's wrong, it just compounds into disaster. So it's kind of like practicing. Practice doesn't make perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. In other words, practicing the right things. So it's good to have a checkup from the neck up. And so we got Karen Mutsel and Cord Goodson on. Cool. And
hey
man,
what's up, Cord? Hello.
Hey Karen, how are you? You're probably on mute. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yes, Alex, I was muted.
How are you doing?
I am all right. Staying busy up here.
Say again?
Staying busy up here.
All right, busy's good.
Yes.
Distractions are not, but sometimes busy is good. All right.
They're always going to be there.
They're always going to be there. That's right. But how much attention do you pay to your distractions? You have to handle your life. You got to manage your life, but kind of the attitude with which you manage your life is where it makes all the difference in the world. And so kind of in the spirit of what I was just talking about, where you can let little things go, little things in what you're doing. Like on the ATM, there's certain things that maybe you're straying off the path from without even knowing it. And sometimes it's good to kind of run what you're doing against the template of what you're supposed to be doing. It's so you know how much you're off course. In the Air Force, when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, those of us who were not pilot qualified, we learned navigation, aircraft navigation. And what was interesting about aircraft navigation is that we were doing it just like they were doing it at sea. Although we had triple redundant inertial navigation systems, so that it always, when you had three of them running, if one went down, you had two other ones. So that uptime on your inertial navigation system by having three redundant systems should get you to a 99.99999% reliability that your INS navigation system is going to work. But they still taught us, and this back in 1980, 81, they still taught us how to do, hardcore aircraft navigation, just as if we were like in World War II or whatever. And which is really no different than land navigation or sea navigation. You'd dead reckon. So what dead reckoning was is that you kind of knew your course, you knew where you knew where you were, and you knew where you had to go. And so you plot out based on airspeed, wind speed, the point, just a point ahead of you. You draw a line, and then you've got the pilot. You're guiding the pilot. Come right, 3 degrees. Come left, and the pilot's flying the plane, but you're telling them to make adjustments. And then once you get to the point that you were dead reckoning, it could be 15 minutes. Everything's kind of measured by minutes. You figure out, are you where you were supposed to be? And so we would triangulate. We'd shoot the star. We'd shoot the North Star with it's really a sextant on the aircraft, and we would shoot the North Star and then really triangulate our position, and then we'd look at how far we were off where we were to where we were supposed to be. And then we again check airspeed and crosswinds and all that, and then dead reckon to the next spot from where we really were. And so we tell the pilot, come right 10 degrees, and And then be constantly dead reckoning, checking, dead reckoning, checking. Then you finally, came to your destination. And, in fact, in the old days, the person that was most active on an aircraft making sure it was flying was not the pilot, it was the navigator. Because, man, navigators, that was hard work. I'm telling you, man, you were constantly tracking, and, it was crazy. And it made me decide I didn't want to be a navigator because it was just too much of a pain. And here we were. I mean, and then you could sort of see your future was with triple redundant INS. They really didn't need navigators, so it was really kind of a traditional thing that they always felt like they needed a real life person to navigate the plane. If the systems went down. So why do I tell you this? Well, I tell you this because when we're doing this business and we're doing what we're doing, you have to dead reckon where you want to go, and then your third point of time is where you thought you would be. And if you're not where you thought you would be, then you need to change something. You need to change direction to go towards that goal. And so, really, what I found in managing my life is, am I where I thought I would be at this point? If I'm not, then what do I need to change to go where I want to go? And then, create another goal. And this talk is not about goal setting as much as it is about doing a checkup. Doing the checkup, are you where you are on the map based on where you dead reckoned where you thought you should be? Okay? And you can do that in a lot of places. You can do it on a sales basis as far as your income, or you can do it on, like the one thing we talked about yesterday is I taught course number 254, whatever that was, on Client for Life. Like some of you guys, some of y'all probably had that on the agenda. The Client for Life course that Jason Carey did, and talking about the Client for Life really is what you got to do to make sure your placement persistency is high. And I was talking about Patrick. We were calculating. The average placement and persistency is about 75%. So if you multiply 75% times 75% based on your submit, I think it's like, come on, you smart guys, 0.75 times 0.75 to get the raw number of from submit to what gets issue paid. Hold on, I got a calculator. 0.75 times 0.75. Okay, 0.56. So if you want to know what you really get paid on that's going to stay in your bank account on the most conservative basis, it's 0.5625. So if you submit $10,000 in a month of premium, and then you just multiply by 0.5625, obviously that's going to be $5,625, right? Well, but that's assuming that you're at 75% placement persistency, which is average. Now, my top folks in my hierarchy in my 15 years, they were doing, it's actually kind of interesting how it's both the same typically. It's like they're doing 90%, 9%, so 0.9 times 0.9 is 0.81. So you can see easily that 10,000 of premium is 8,100 if they're at 90% placement persistency. Do you see how big a difference that is? And then some of my worst, I'll tell you, my worst had been 0.55, 0.55. 0.55 times 0.55. That's 3,025 of issue paid premium that you'd be paid on. Now notice how vast the difference between the low end and the high end, really coming to get to the middle. 3,025, 5625 to 8,100. So why do I say this? Just to illustrate the point that sometimes if you don't know how you got to where you are, you're in trouble. Like when you think, man, I did 10,000, I did really good. How come I didn't get paid? You ever have that thought? It's like, I thought I did better this month, but my bank account reflects different. Well, Joe, let me ask you, what's your place in a persistency? Oh, I don't know. Well, because that's where it usually shows up. I call it the silent killer. So I talked about this last night relative to place in persistency, but it's the not knowing part, not knowing what that is. And in our business, to kind of bring this back to what we're talking about, doing the checkup from the neck up, doing the checkup in all aspects of your business. Number one, are you doing a checkup? And number two, do you know what to do if you're not there? So you're dead reckoning. Okay, you're drawing a line. Okay, I know I don't have my join me on. But you're drawing it. Okay, so here you are. I'm drawing a dot on my whiteboard, on the left side of my whiteboard. And then I'm drawing an arrow to another point on my whiteboard. Okay. Now, you think you're going towards that dot, but let's say you have wind shear going perpendicular to you, at 10 knots. That's working on you. And you think you're going straight, but actually that 10-knot crosswind is causing you to go to the right of your destination. So I'm drawing a circle to the right of your destination, and that could be, depending on how long you went and how much that wind shear is, that crosswind, that difference could be 10 miles. It could be 50 miles. Okay? It could be that, because the longer you go and stray off where you think you're going, but because of what you're doing, you haven't accounted for the crosswind. And then you could be 10 miles off, you could be 100 miles off, depending on how long you went with it. So here's my point. Do you want to go and dead reckon, 6 months from now to then determine where you're at? Or do you need to do it every month? How about this? With some things, do a checkup from the neck up every day. Alex, which ones do I do? Which one do I need to focus on? All of them. It seems impossible, but it's not impossible. Okay. So you need to check your business results every month, because we run kind of monthly cycles. You check your sales results every week, and then you make adjustments. Even on a daily basis, if you didn't get all the appointments you needed to make, then you need to make an adjustment to get more leads or whatever. If you're not getting like I talked about yesterday, if you're not getting all the leads you need to make money, you need to figure out where to rotate to, how many areas you need to rotate to. You need to be actively dead reckoning and checking where you're at, triangulating. Dead reckoning and triangulating. Okay, what does triangulation mean? Okay, for those of you who don't know about land navigation or air navigation, triangulating means you have to know where you're at. You have to check where you're at based on 3 different positions that haven't moved. 3 different positions that you haven't moved. So you would, so I'll take a land navigation example, because I'm pretty good with the compass, and we learned that land navigation at the academy. So we lay the map down, so we don't know where we are, but we do know that there are landmarks that haven't moved. And so we point our compass towards a mountain peak, okay, and that mountain peak says that's 183 degrees from our position. And then we take another landmark that's in the opposite direction, or several degrees away, and it's another mountain peak, okay, and then I don't want to be geeky and do all the math, but let's say that's 25 degrees from our position. And then there's a third, it's a lake. And inside the lake, it's like Mono Lake. So in Mono Lake, there's a little island in the middle. And so we're shooting the island on our compass. And let's say that's 270 degrees. Well, if you draw the lines from 270 degrees from Model Lake, the island of Model Lake, then the two mountain peaks, they all will meet in the middle. And where they meet is where you are. Okay, so there you go. You didn't know that you would have a navigation education here. So the analogies are important. Because what are you triangulating on? Are you triangulating your position on things that move? that you think are fixed, but you know what I mean? What do I mean by that? What are things that you are trying to measure yourself against that move? Other people. You know, are you surrounded by people that have up and down attitudes and crazy mindsets that aren't stable? Well, I would not triangulate your attitude and mindset on someone who you know is unstable, right? I would triangulate my attitude and mindset on people that I know are stable. So let's give you some of those who are stable. Andy Albright. That's pretty stable. It's about as stable in my book. If what he's saying to you doesn't burn you or doesn't, you know, because we're not all perfect. The reason why he does and says that it's to make you move, to get you emotional about your changing to be more like that. You know, not to get defensive, but like, golly, that hurts. He told me something that just hurts. Hurt is good. I'd love to get hurt by what Andy Albright talks about because it talks about where I need to change. It's a triangulation. So I look at Andy Albright as my triangulation point. Okay? My second triangulation point is my spiritual life. God never changes, oh, by the way. So whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, God doesn't change because we all worship the same God. He doesn't change. So how do I know that I've triangulated on what God wants me to do? I pray. I get around other spiritual people who I know are solid. And I triangulate, am I doing the right thing in my life? Because I triangulate on God. That's immovable. So I have confidence that God's me. I have confidence in Andy Albright, who's built this business for us to be in. Right? Okay. The third triangulation point is your upline, your growing upline. Your growing upline who are doing the things that you should be doing. And I use growing upline as meaning that other people in the alliance, not just me, it's the other people in the alliance that Andy edifies, and you know, you measure yourself against those people, the people that you relate to that are on track, that are building this thing. It's another way to triangulate. Another way in triangulate implies three, but another way to triangulate is by books, the books you're reading. Are the books you're reading giving you a triangulation point to determine where am I in my mindset and attitude? Where am I in my life? Man, books rock, right? Books rock. So this is how you know where you are in your life in relation to where you want to go and what you want to accomplish. You triangulate on Andy Albright by plugging into all the conference calls, by going to things like Instance Thunder, by going to our national conferences, by being on the TWC, by being around him in all the different ways we can be around him. That is how you triangulate Andy Albright. Okay? Well, God, I already told you that. Your growing upline, we're talking about association, really hanging around the people that are more in life you want to be. And then finally, books. Books are immovable. The words don't change. The words don't change in books, but by reading them, they change you. And here's what's interesting is how you know you've changed is when you read the same book a year later, 5 years later, and then you glean other things out of it. Like, have you ever gone through a book and you first time you went through it, you highlighted it in yellow? I promise you, a year later, 6 months later, 5 years later, you highlight in blue, and I promise you that the blue will be different than the yellow. There'll be stuff that pop out of you in that book. Now, did the words change? No, the words did not change. Who changed? You changed. But the triangulation process on books continue to help you determine where you are. In fact, it's almost a confirmation of where you are. All right? It's almost confident. Like I read the Bible every night. I try to go through the four Gospels consistently. Let's go through it, the four Gospels consistently. When I'm done, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. I think that's the order. I'm in John right now. I tell you what, man, John is one of my favorite books for other reasons, like the vine. We talked about the vine, the branches. But, man, the stuff I was reading yesterday, it's like, where the heck? I've never saw this before. Now, remember, I go through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's it. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I'm reading it. It's like, holy crap. Jesus is hardcore when he talks about this stuff. I gleaned the hardcore Jesus. Now, John, the disciple that Jesus loved, that's how he refers to him. I love that book primarily because of all the touchy-feely. It's just my impression. It might be different for you. My impression is the touchy-feely, the touchy-feeliness of the Gospel of John. But I read stuff in there. I'm going, oh my God, this is hardcore. What's hardcore stuff? This is hardcore. It's like I didn't see it before, but I'm seeing it now because I'm different now. Maybe I needed the touchy-feeliness before, but maybe I need the hardcore stuff now. I mean, for whatever reason, that illumination of what jumped out at me kind of really measures where I'm at today. So, does this make sense to you guys? That you have to, am I where I need to be? Measuring where you need to be by triangulating on points that are immovable in your life. And sometimes you are maybe on track, but maybe you're a few degrees off. But thank God I found it, within a month versus a year. Because if I was still off by that many degrees, a year from now, I'd be way off where my goal is. Okay? So I guess I'm urging you to do the checkup from the neck up, do the triangulation early and often with things that are important. Your business is important. Okay? Your attitude and mindset is important. Actually, it's probably more important because everything rises and falls on your attitude and mindset, your self-image, how you see yourself. Okay? So, I was thumbing through a book. Well, this is like one of my standards. Okay, so we talk about triangulation books. And one of the triangulation books that I have in my hand right now is called The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz, PhD. So when you remember the term, may the Schwartz be with you, I think about Magic of Thinking Big versus, you guys remember that movie? Anyway,
Oh, yeah. That's good stuff.
Mel Brooks. I'm a Mel Brooks fan.
Yep.
And, of course, I'm dating myself. So some of you old people out there know what I'm talking about. May the Schwartz be with you. But I know I totally broke momentum here. So, okay, getting back into this book. So I was coming through this book, and this is a book. Like I wish I kind of was on my Join Me because I wish I could show you all the yellows and the pinks, all the yellows and pinks. It's just interesting to go look at old books. Gordon, have you ever done that where you went through it again and highlighted it? Isn't it interesting how it's different?
Way different. Yeah. It seems like almost every single book I've ever gone back and read. It's like, why was that important at the time? This is more important. Yeah. I can tell you different things out of it. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so I'm thumbing through this and I'm going, oh man. Okay, so just in line, maybe I'm doing this more for me than for you. Maybe you can get something out of it. Okay, so here's my. So I will publicly triangulate on me, and maybe you can get the benefit. So the one thing that just really popped out at me, big thinkers are specialists in creating positive, forward-looking, optimistic pictures in their own minds and in the minds of others. Is that interesting?
in their own minds and in the minds of others. To think big, we must use words and phrases which produce big positive mental images. He talks in this book about how we think in pictures, and I was teaching that last night in terms of what do you want your life to be? In fact, this kind of reminds me of a point that I failed to make earlier. When we navigate a plane, we want to go to a particular destination. So we're leaving from Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, and then we're pretending like we're going to Travis Air Force Base in California. And actually, our training missions would take us from, just in the air, we'd go over California, then come back to Colorado Springs. And that was a training mission for a day. And so you got to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, then why even get in the plane at all? And so part of this destination thing is, what do you want your life to be? What do you want your life to be in the future? Do you want to be debt-free? Do you want to have a fulfilled life of changing other people's lives, being a big contributor to your church? Or, what is it? What do you want your life to be? How do you visualize it? And so we talked last night about visualizing your life, how your life is going to be in the future, what you're going for. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting up with all the crap? Right? What do you want your life to be? How do you visualize it? And I talked about how we work in a visual. Our minds work visually. Like when I say apple, how many of you thought about a picture of an apple? Your mind didn't start spelling APPLE, did it? Like in Times Courier font, 12-point Times Courier font in black against white background. I dare say that probably most of you did not think. Most of you thought about the picture of an apple, right? Some of you might be Granny Smith. Some of you might be a Red Delicious. Okay, some of you might be that sour apple type that you put salt on, and you're thinking about what it looks like. You're not thinking about the word, and so the word picture, the picture, how you want your life to be, is visual. So that's what he says here. To think big, we must use words and phrases which produce big, positive mental images. And I love what he does here. He puts examples. Nothing like a great example. So he contrasts phrases. So this is a great checkup from the neck up. Have you measured your language and how you speak? And this is, I love this. And so I was reading through this. I go, I was like, man, I was like getting riddled with bullets. I might as well have been in front of a AK-47 because this was just riddling with me. Okay, so phrases which create small negative mind changes. Okay, so here's the negative. It's no use. We're whipped. Here's the positive. We're not whipped yet. Let's keep trying. Here's a new angle. Okay, the negative. I was in that business once and failed. Never again. The positive. I went broke, but it was my own fault. I'm going to try again. Here's the negative. I've tried, but the product won't sell. People don't want it. Here's the positive. So far, I've not been able to sell this product, but I know it's good, and I'm going to find the formula that will put it over. Here's the negative. The market's saturated. Imagine 75% of the potential has already been sold. Better get out. Then here's positive. Imagine 25% of the market's still not sold. Count me in. This thing looks big. Okay, now think back to Winnie the Pooh. The market's saturated. Imagine 75% of the potential has already been sold. Better get out. Who does that sound like? Anybody? Oh, come on. That's a late. That's an Eeyore. Exactly. Okay, now imagine 25% of the market's still not sold. Count me in. This looks big. Okay, that was a bad Tigger impression. But, man, I want to be a Tigger. I want to bounce on my tail. You know what I'm saying? I want to be Tigger. I don't want to be Eeyore. And it's funny how it's kind of a funny visual when you think about, bouncing around on your tail. But, man, I want to be Tigger. So are you a Tigger or are you an Eeyore, man? What's the words that are coming out of your mouth? Are you speaking positive expectation on something big happening in your life? Or are you expecting that it's all going to be the same as it always been? 5 years is too long a time to spend before I'll get into the top ranks of the company. Count me out. 5 years, man, it's not really a long time. Just think, that leaves me 30 years to serve at a high level. See how it's just, man, so where's your language at? What is your vocabulary telling you? How you speak, will it totally expose what is going on in your head. And when you speak positive like that, remember, you're not only speaking it into yourself, you're speaking it into other people. Right? You're speaking it into other people. It's kind of the analogy that I use. 2 shoe salesmen fly to a deserted island. Deserted island means there's no people there, but they fly to a Pacific island. They're shoe salesmen. They both land at this island. They look around the island, they're touring around, and one shoe salesman calls back to the company. He goes, well, it looks like we don't have an opportunity here. No one wears shoes. And then the other salesman calls back to the company and goes, oh, man, this is a gold mine. No one wears shoes. Do you see how that perspective is totally 180 degrees out? One guy is fired up and the other guy is depressed. That's what we're talking about here, man, how you look at what can be, what your life can be by changing how you're looking at it. So that was the thing that just kind of hit me. Small thinking about unimportant things like seeing your name last on the department route sheet or getting the 4th carbon of an office memo can hurt you. Think big, and none of these little things can hold you back. Okay, so I admit. Okay, so this is like true confessions. And it's just something I have to, kind of, my pride and ego is like my root sin. Okay, so my root sin in my life is pride and ego. And that's something I battle. So every time I look, and it's kind of really vestiges of selfishness. So the selfishness part of my life is what holds me back from a spiritual perspective. So I'm always working on that. And so, when I listen to Andy talk about people on the phone, when I don't hear my name, then I get, like I used to. This doesn't happen anymore. I got over this a while ago, but I used to get really mad. They're like, well, how come he's not mentioning my name? How come when he mentions all these other people's names, he doesn't mention mine? He doesn't love me, or I must suck, or, he must hate me, or, whatever, right? It was such small-minded thinking, because I was thinking very selfishly of myself, going, how come, and I was maybe wrapping up in my head that had to do with me not, there was something wrong with me. Okay, and I ended up realizing, what a small-minded thing. What a very small-minded thing. When I should be more concerned about, how come he didn't mention Patrick's name? He mentioned Leventovich's and a bunch of Leventovich team. I was fired up for them, man. So I could have thought selfishly and petty, or I could think big, like, man, of all the people he talked about on that call, 1/3 of the people he talked about was on my team. You see how when you focus on the little petty things, it can really bog you down and kind of, ruin your day just because you didn't mention, your name, or you see, it's just, you see how that is, if you're like me. Hopefully you're not like me in that way, but, sometimes people are, we're very similar sometimes. Okay. Take this test and measure the size of your thinking. So this is the petty thinker versus the big thinker's approach to things. So, so an example here is conversation. A petty thinker's approach to conversation talks about the negative qualities of his friends, the economy, the company, the competition. Here's the big thinker's approach to conversation. Talks about the positive qualities of his friends, his company, the competition. Even the competition. Like when you're in a sales situation, well, I got a quote from State Farm. Oh, State Farm. Instead of, hey, that's a great company. Man, they got great commercials. Let me talk to you about how awesome Mutual of Omaha is. Do you see how just even in the approach that you don't talk bad about your competition, you talk good about them, but you talk better about yours? Do you see how that sort of changes your attitude and mindset towards things? You know, I hate the New England Patriots. Okay, let it be known that I hate the New England Patriots. However, they are winners, man. There's no doubt about it. That team wins. And Belichick prepares. He overly prepares for his opponents. That Tom Brady, that dude, he's 30-something. Man, I hope when I'm 30-something, I hope to be as proficient as he is in his endeavors, you know. See how positive that is? That's hard for me to do, by the way. I took every energy in me. Every bit of caffeine I drank this morning got me through that, okay? Okay, so the petty thinker's approach to progress believes in retrenchment or at best the status quo. So the petty thinker, they just, God, if I could just stay where I'm at. Versus the big thinker's approach believes in expansion. Future, petty thinker's approach to future views the future as limited, whereas the big thinker sees the future as very promising. The petty thinker's approach to work looks for ways to avoid work, whereas the big thinker's approach to work looks for more ways and things to do, especially helping others. The petty thinker's approach to competition competes with the average. The big thinker's approach to competition competes with the best. The petty thinker's approach to budget problems figures out ways to save money by cutting down on necessary items. But the big thinker's approach to budget problems figures out ways to increase income and buy more of the necessary items. Petty thinker's approach to goals sets goals low. The big thinker's approach to goals sets goals high. That's pretty simple. Vision. Petty thinker's approach to vision sees only the short run. The big thinker's approach to vision is preoccupied with the long run. Their eye is on the prize. The eye is on what they want their life to be. Security. The petty thinker is preoccupied with security problems. The big thinker regards security as a natural companion of success. Companionship. A petty thinker's approach to companionship surrounds himself with petty thinkers. The big thinker's approach surrounds himself with persons with large progressive ideas. Petty thinker's approach to mistakes magnifies minor errors, turns them into big issues. The big thinker's approach to mistakes ignores errors of little consequence. So, man, did that kind of make you think about how you are thinking about things? Are you thinking big or are you thinking petty? Right? Again, check up from the neck up, brothers and sisters. Check up from the neck up. Here's another highlight. Prolonged association with negative people makes us think negatively. Close contact with petty individuals develops petty habits in us. On the bright side, companionship with people with big ideas raises the level of our thinking. Close contact with ambitious people gives us ambition. This is why hotspot meetings is your lifeblood. This is where you get the juice pumped into you every week. And if you can't go to hotspots, you got to get on the conference calls. You got to listen to MP3s. Prolonged association. Okay, prolonged association with negative people or positive people. How you will change depends on your future environment, the mind food you feed yourself. Step one, recondition yourself for success. Check this out. I love this part. About the people that hang around you. As a result of being bombarded with you can't get ahead, so don't bother, try propaganda, people try to influence you with that crap, most people you know can be classified into three groups. Okay, so check this out. The first group, those who surrendered completely. They go to great lengths to rationalize their status and explain how, quote-unquote, happy they are. They're convinced deep down inside that they haven't got what it takes, that real success, real accomplishment is for others who are lucky or fortunate in some special respect. How many of you people know the first group of people? Here's the second group, those who surrender partially. That's almost worse. These people prepare themselves. They work, they plan, but after a decade or so, resistance begins to build up. Competition for the top-level jobs looks rugged. This group then decides that greater success is not worth the effort. They rationalize, well, we're earning more than average, and we live better than average. Why should we knock ourselves out? Right? It's like, oh, my gosh. Decide that the status quo is okay. Now, look, I'm not saying that everyone has to continue to acquire wealth. And no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about ambition and achieving and goals, whatever it is, not material per se, but fulfilling things in your life that you're on this earth for, being more than who you are. This person they get to a certain level and they just kind of, well, this is okay. This group has developed a set of fears: fear of failure, fear of social disapproval, fear of insecurity, fear of losing what they already have. Oh my gosh. How many of you watch a football game and the team that gets the early lead, they stop playing the way they were playing to get that lead, and then all of a sudden the other team comes back and wins the game? How many times have you heard, well, in the second half they got conservative because they had the lead? When what they were doing before to run up the score was working, why did they stop? That's this person. And they're fearing of losing what they had. And when you play defense to win, it's never a good thing. You're just hanging on. That's no way to be. Third group. Which group are you in? Let's describe this third group. Those who never surrender. This group may be 2 or 3% of the total. Doesn't let pessimism dictate. Doesn't believe in surrendering to suppressive forces. Doesn't believe in crawling. Instead, these people live and breathe success. This group is happiest because it accomplishes the most. That just doesn't mean that they don't encounter problems or challenges, right? But they get through those problems and challenges because they believe. They believe in themselves. They believe in the system they're in. They believe that they will overcome whatever it is because they're moving towards their goal. It says here, let's be honest, all of us would like to be in the third group. The one that finds greater success each year. The one that does things that gets results. To get and stay in this group, however, we must fight off the suppressive influences of our environment. Fight off the suppressive influences of our environment. So how have you created your environment to not have these kind of people that try to bring you down, right? So look at the environment that you're in. Are you talking too much to the wrong people and not talking enough to the right people? Are you reading the newspaper and watching the news? Oh my gosh. Seriously, gang? You got to guard yourself from negative. You only have so much negative to handle the negative stuff in your life. So why are you trying to pull your stamina down to handle negative with junk on the news? I promise you'll find out. If it's important enough, you'll find out about the negative from other people. They're just going to tell you. I choose not to know until it is that big. And the newspaper, are you kidding me? People, why do you think rubberneckers on a highway rubberneck? Because they're interested in disaster. They're interested in seeing blood and guts. They think they don't want to see it, but they really want to see, is it like how it looks like on TV? How many of you kind of major slowdown on a highway only to discover the reason why the slowdown happened is that there was an accident and the car and the torn up cars and stuff were on the side of the road. They just wanted to see the disaster. It's like, man, really? a majority of people out there, that's why they say this third group's only 3%, because 97% of people out there are the rubberneckers that relish looking at the disaster. I don't know about you, but I'd rather not have that in my life, and I'd rather steel my mind against all that crap. Because, look, life is hard enough already without having to add to it, and you only have so much stamina to handle it. So why not apply your stamina to people not booking appointments with you or people no-showing you? I'd rather reserve my stamina for that than spend my negative tank on crap that I can control. See, we're talking about stuff you can control. If you get that call from that relative that keeps bringing you down, how's that insurance thing working? When are you going to start making money in that? It's like, oh my gosh, seriously? Don't pick up the phone. They might stop calling you. You have to guard your ear gate and your eye gate. The input into your brain, which is what you hear and what you see. What you hear and what you see, you got to guard the ear gate and the eye gate to your mind. And only filtering in the good stuff and filtering out the bad stuff. The filtering part of the bad stuff is putting yourself in an environment that is all positive, or as positive compared to the negative, because a lot of times it's all in degrees. Okay, it doesn't mean you don't visit your mother, but if your mother's negative, maybe you make that hour-long visit 30 minutes. You love your mother, I know, but you gotta put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you save other people. And I'm telling you're the most important person you got to take care of when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? Golly, how much time do we have? 11:47. Wow, this is kind of going quick. Are you all sleeping? This isn't making any sense. Anybody?
A lot of sense.
Okay, good. Okay, here's one. If you have this book, I hope you get into it again, or you kind of thumb through the highlights, because this stuff is just really good stuff. But anyway, here's another one. You are judged by the company you keep. Birds of a feather do flock together. Fellow workers are not all alike. Some are negative, others positive. Some work because they have to. Others are ambitious and work for advancement. Some associates belittle everything the boss says or does. Others are much more objective and realize they must be good followers before they can be good leaders. How we think is directly affected by the group we're in. Be sure you're in the flock that thinks right. All right, gang? So be sure you flock in with the right flock. They know where they're going. They're flying south for the winter. Some of y'all up in Minnesota, God bless you. Don't let negative thinkers put you down to their level. Cling to people that think progressively. Move upward with them. Oh, man. This book just rocks. Guard your psychological environment. Select friends who are interested in positive things. Find friends who breathe encouragement into your plans and ideals. Thought poison. I love the way he says it. Commonly called gossip. Thought poison. Thought poison is subtle, but it accomplishes big things. It reduces the size of our thinking by forcing us to concentrate on petty, unimportant things. Thought poison is 0% right thinking and 100% wrong thinking. Gossip is just negative conversation about people, and the victim of thought poison begins to think he enjoys it. He seems to get a form of poisoned joy from talking negatively about others, not knowing that to successful people he is becoming increasingly unlikable and unreliable. So how do you talk about people? Talk about people positively. Okay, he says here, let's make one point clear. All conversation is not gossip. Bull session, shop talk, just batting the breeze are necessary at times. They serve a good purpose when they are constructive. You can test your proneness to being a gossiper by taking this test. Okay, so you guys ready to take the test? The gossip test, the thought poison test? So here it is. Number one, do I spread rumors about other people? Do I always have good things to say about others? Do I like to hear reports of scandal? Do I judge others only on the basis of facts? Do I encourage others to bring their rumors to me? I love that one. You know what? Here's how I know that I don't really involve myself in this, is that I'm always the last to know about everything in NAA. Anything negative, I always hear about it. I forget. Sometimes I forget how I hear about it, but it like happened like a long time ago, and it's like I had no idea. Like for some reason, people don't talk to me about gossip. So I'm kind of thankful for that. So that's sort of if people are gossiping to you, maybe there's something about you that makes it easy for them to gossip to you about other people. Okay, the next one. Do I proceed my conversations with, don't tell anybody? Don't tell anybody. Oh, my gosh. Do I keep confidential information confidential? The last one, do I feel guilty about what I say concerning other people? Look, I think that there's this Holy Spirit thing that happens inside each and every one of us. And I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but you ever experienced that thing where in your mind you're thinking about saying something, maybe about someone else or whatever, and you're deciding whether you should do it or not? Have you ever been in that position where you want to say something and you're deciding? Let me tell you right now that's that spirit inside of you that's saying you shouldn't. If you ever come to the point where you have to decide whether or not it might be something to tell someone or it's something to say, chances are it's probably not a good thing to say if you have to have this moral discussion about it. Maybe that's a well-formed conscience that allows you to make that determination. If you don't have a well-formed conscience about right and wrong, then that's going to be difficult for you. But I don't know, sometimes trust your feelings on that. So how do you make your environment make you successful? Number one, be environment conscious. Just as body diet makes the body, mind diet makes the mind. Number two, make your environment work for you, not against you. Don't let suppressive forces, the negative, you can't do it, people, make you think defeat. Number three, don't let small-thinking people hold you back. Jealous people want to see you stumble. Don't give them that satisfaction, gang. Number four, get your advice from successful people. Your future is important. Never risk it with freelance advisors who are living failures. Number five, get plenty of psychological sunshine. Circulate in new groups. Discover new and stimulating things to do. Like, this is what I love. Andrew Peters went to Instant Thunder and drove Eric Belair back to the airport. Of all the people I've talked to in Instant Thunder, that was just about the smartest thing I've ever heard anyone do. And when he told me that, it's like, I think Andrew gets it. I think he gets this business. By serving the top people, by doing little things for them, they end up pouring into you because they are grateful for you. Plus they know that you're like them because that's what they did for others, for other people. That rocks. Get plenty of psychological sunshine. 6, throw thought poison out of your environment. Avoid gossip. Talk about people, but stay on the positive side of people. That's not gossip. That's uplifting conversation. Number 7, go first class in everything you do. You can't afford to go any other way. Now, I don't know how much opportunity you've had to talk to Tim Goad personally, but if you ever have, I tell you what, man, not a negative word comes out of that man's mouth. And if you start saying negative things, he'll just smile and listen to you, never acknowledges it or agrees with it, but he'll change the conversation or change it more towards a positive. That man is just incredible when it comes to just, he oozes this sense, you know, and it's not in a Joel Osteen way. It's in a it's in a different way. It's just he has this different spirit. Now, Joel Osteen rocks. I mean, the stuff he does and says, like, blows me away. But Tim Gubb, because he's just more, we can access him, right? He's like right there. His demeanor, if you ever think about anything, any conversation you've had, like the people, like there's some people that you probably are around that they've never said a bad thing about anybody. It's like, man, how can I be more like that person? Right? How can I be more like that person? I want to be more like that person. So think about that. People like that. So anyway, gang, I hope I didn't totally bore you. I think we're done. Man, I got you off 4 minutes early. So read this book, The Magic of Thinking Big, or reread it. It's really good stuff, man, and it helped me triangulate where I'm at and where I need to go and what I need to do, and kind of stay on the side of positive and not gossip and not murmur and all that stuff. All right. So does that make sense, everybody? Anyone got anything to add or subtract or to multiply, divide? Quiet.
Appreciate you sharing.
I hope it helped. All right, folks. Man, I appreciate y'all. Let's close out September with a rockin' week, and got some big things accomplished, man. Magic of thinking big. Think big. Think about what you want your life to be. Visualize it, and then live it, and then triangulate. Figure out where you're at compared to where you want to go. All right. God bless you, everybody. Take care. Have an awesome week, and let's do this thing.